every time I see a piece of content that's like, you can't get rich being an employee, I'm like, you guys are idiots. Steve Ballmer started as Bill Gates' assistant. Are you kidding me? Tim Cook isn't an entrepreneur. Tim Cook is an operator. Are you kidding me? You can do so much.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin End.
And I'm Shane.
And today we're joined by my man, T. Drew. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, fellas. Excited.
Oh, dude, this is going to be such a great episode. I'm excited. You got a lot of wisdom you're going to share with us today. We're going to be talking about your brand. We're going to get a little bit into your life story. Guys, there's a reason he's named T. Drew, but you're going to have to stick around to figure it out. He's also going to share a lot of valuable insights around marketing, what he's learned in life, and most importantly, he's got some really good takes on what it actually is to build wealth. He doesn't think that you just got to be an entrepreneur. He thinks there's a few other ways. I mean, let's see what he says, right? Because at the end of the day, we all know that entrepreneurship is the way. That's why we're the one percenters. But maybe it's not. Maybe T. Drew thinks differently. So stick around. Hear what we got for you today. It's going to be another phenomenal episode here on the 1% Podcast. So let's jump in. All right. T. Drew, we got to ask, man, because I don't even know the story behind this. What's the story? Why you call T. Drew?
Yeah. So government name is obviously Thomas. And growing up, so to backtrack, my grandfather, who I'm named after, was Thomas Smith Sr. And my mom named me after her father. He passed away right before I was born, right? So there was significance in that. His son, who is my uncle, was Thomas Smith as well, the third. And I looked up to my uncle growing up because he was this super successful entrepreneur. There's this television show that I think a few people will know called The Proud Family. And then there was another one called Moesha. These two like really big shows. He produced them. He did a lot of cool movies with cool people. And I looked up to him a lot, and I used to go visit him in LA. He was like a hero of mine, etc. And when I used to visit him, nobody called him Thomas Smith. Everybody used to call him T. Smith or just T. But like even in work situations, it was T. Smith. And no matter if it was like a script or if it was like credits on TV, like every time I watched The Proud Family, I would wait and look at the credits and look for my uncle. And it always said T. Smith 3. And I was like, yo, this is so cool. And I obviously developed a relationship with him. I looked up to him. And when I was a freshman in college, and I was playing college basketball and I was kind of coming into my own and all this other type of stuff, it was funny. I was at a party and someone says to me, she was like, you don't really come off as like a Thomas. That's kind of like whatever. You're more of like a T or like and then she was like T. Drew. And I was like, oh, like I kind of like that. So I took that to my uncle and I was like, yo, like, I think I'm going to go by T. Drew. And cause you going by T. Smith, whatever. And he loved that so much. And, I remember, unfortunately my uncle's no longer with us. He passed away to cancer. But I just remember when I used to visit him and just how proud he was saying like, this is my nephew, T. Drew, because it reminded him of him being T. Smith. And so me just being an entrepreneur, and it's one of those things where, it's kind of like an ode to him. And, I haven't really shared that with like a lot of people, but that's like the DNA of it.
Well, that's a beautiful story, man. It's rooted in legacy. And I'm curious too, as somebody who has changed their name. I used to call myself Vincenzo, even though that's not my name, because, I struggled a lot with bullying, my body image, all that good stuff. And I know that in changing my name, it gave me a new sense of power. it gave me this identity that I could have never dreamed of having, right? I was this little chubby kid that got bullied. And once I became Vincenzo, it was really, really cool. And I'm just curious, was there an aspect of that for you too? Was T Drew like the most empowering version of you that you just stepped into? Or was it really just for legacy? Tell us a little bit more about that.
No, you're absolutely right, man. I skipped a grade. I was a nerd. I was the chubby kid. I got bullied. I got shoved into lockers. Uh, and that was Thomas. And like Thomas was Thomas was overweight. Thomas had zero self confidence. Thomas was always trying to fit in but couldn't. He never understood that being different was his superpower, but I always was good at visualizing whatever I wanted to be.
Mm,
And so I created this picture of the type of man or person that I wanted to be, that I wanted to grow up into, that had these characteristics. And that was T Drew. So like transitioning from Thomas to T Drew, like I think,
mm,
Mel Robbins says it, it's kind of like just be the person that you want to become.
Mm.
Like you don't have to wait to embody the characteristics and embody that. Like just be that. So when I got taller, when I grew into my body, when I was good enough to become a college athlete, when I gained confidence, when I found charisma and some of these other things, like that was T Drew, to the point it got to the point where, and it's still like this today. Like if you go in New York City and if somebody knows me and you were to say, "Oh, I know Thomas Drew," a lot of them will be like Thomas Drew. But if you go T Drew, they're like, "Oh, T Drew," like, yeah. So, and it's similar too. Like I've looked up to Kobe Bryant my entire life, and that's what he did with the Black Mamba. Like when he was going through all this stuff in his career, um, when things were kind of looking bleak and whatever, he created this persona called the Black Mamba because he was able to just be that and embody those characteristics. And he
mm.
was like, Kobe deals with these things, but the Black Mamba deals with this. So like I it's funny, I went through the exact same thing you did. Like the bullying it was bad, to the point where one day when I have like a war chest of cash and I can focus on philanthropy, like I want to do things to help directly eradicate bullying. That's always been like a thing for me.
Mm.
Yeah, same here, man. Me and T Drew, we even though we didn't go to the same school, we had the same experience. I got thrown in the lockers. Now I don't know about you, but I also got shoved in trash cans. So I don't know if
I
you
think
had
I
that
was I think I was too big for that.
I guess I wasn't fat enough.
Well, dude, and I mean and it wasn't even just the kids for me. Um, the teachers got in on it, meaning I
True.
was very like to this day. I know now that I have ADHD because I was diagnosed as an adult, and I mean I always knew this, right? Like just with my brain was too overactive. But I went to a Catholic school for grade school and high school, and so we had like sisters as professors. And I'm not going to say her full name and out her because I don't know where she is in life. God bless her, whatever. But I had this professor. We'll call her Sister Jackson. So I'm in her class, and I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention or if I forgot exactly what went on. But the long story short, Sister Jackson came over and kicked me in class and told me to shut up. And I called my mom. Like I went to the principal's office and called my mom. And bro, my mom came to that school and raised hell, boy. like she like she wrote me a letter of apology. I don't even think like so it wasn't even just the kids. I had a teacher kick me for whatever reason.
I think that
Um
was just the Catholic school experience, man. I got hit with a cane one time because my principal had a cane and he had a limp at and he got annoyed at me and he smacked me with a cane because I was wearing the wrong socks.
yeah, dude. See, the Catholic schools, man. I mean, and that was the other thing too. And I couldn't fit in because not only was I in like AP courses and I like legitimately was like a nerd and just awkward, but like um a lot of the black kids didn't want to be my friend because they said that I like sounded white, because I was like articulate and these other things. And then, a lot of the white kids didn't really want to be my friend because I was black.
Hmm.
So it created this window of like, damn, okay, so I think the only way I'm going to be able to get friends is if I become good at sports because like being in AP courses and being a nice dude just isn't going to cut it. Like the girls don't like me. I don't have any friends. I'm not getting invited to anything.
Yeah.
So like, but it created this thing in my head where, you call it a Bill and origin story or whatever, where I was just like, okay, one day, um, I'm going to make everybody sorry for treating me this way, not by treating them the wrong way, but by becoming exactly who I want to be.
Mm.
Yeah. Man, I wish you went to my high school. We would have been best friends
You
because
would have
we
been
would have been
friends. Yeah.
we would have had nobody to hang out with and no girls would have dated us. We would have played video games and watched anime. It would have been great.
We 100% would have played video games and watched anime because that's all I was doing.
That's it. I love it. I love it.
You just
Okay.
made best friends right here.
That's it. I know.
Yeah, it's like the Step Brothers thing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean, Alice? Can't you see this is my brother? I'm getting those vibes right now. All right. This has been great. We could probably go on about this and just share. Honestly, it sounds like the exact same story for hours. But with that being said, you've got a really cool life in addition to what you're doing now. You've built something phenomenal. You're an entrepreneur. Can we talk a little about what you've been building and how you've been doing it?
Yeah, man. So I started a few businesses actually before I got to New York, and I've always known I was going to be an entrepreneur, um, because there was this like little class project when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and we had to like write in a book what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I wrote that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and own 7 businesses, and that I loved basketball and New York City and reading and skateboarding. So like the only thing that hasn't been true with that is the fact that I still don't, I don't skateboard, but I'm living in New York City and I've started a few things and um yeah, the wellness company that I started with a partner of mine around like, late 2018, early 2019, that's been a winding road of ups and downs. Um, which will probably lead to some controversial topics on entrepreneurship that I'll probably get into. But
Let's do
excuse
it.
me, we started as a clothing company. Um, did this huge influencer thing, drove a decent amount of sales, but then realized that we didn't want to be a clothing company because it didn't really drive forward the mission of what we wanted to accomplish. And then we had a little foray into the supplement space and kind of did like a small run of the supplements, and that went decently well. But there were some problems with manufacturing, and there were some problems with people we were contracting to help on the marketing and advertising side. Took a step back from there, and then went on to focus on the content and technology side. And at the time, this was back around 2020, 2021. We were focused on essentially, I don't know if you guys heard of this company called NerdWallet, but we were focusing on building like a wellness version of NerdWallet. So like, think about like content that helps you, become 1% better each day holistically. That's like always been our thing. And then you combine that, with a user friendly app that kind of helps you discover products and information and things. Um, and that was going well. We ended up landing a $1.3 million deal with a humongous company. The whole thing is under NDA still, so I can't really talk about it, even though it didn't end up working out. But that deal helped us raise money. It helped us validate what we were doing. We had tons of content, traffic, and all these cool things. And this was like, it's one of the 10 biggest companies in the world. And, we were going to be a wellness partner of something they were releasing, and it was extremely exciting, specifically in the emotional wellness space. And right before we were supposed to go to production, that whole deal fell apart. And, you know, it was one of my first times negotiating a deal that big with a company that big. And I didn't negotiate essentially what would have been like a breakup clause and essentially like an insurance clause with, the amount of money we spent on staffing up and some of these other things. And so the deal went under, we didn't have it. That was very tough. And then AI hit. So then the type of technology that we're building, the type of experience that we're building, which from the content side of the business was driven by organic top of funnel SEO. And then, we're trying to build this app that's focused on helping people build healthy habits and weave into the content. AI flipped that on its head. And I saw pretty immediately into the future that SEO was just going to be completely commoditized. And I had to take a real step back and say, okay, do I shut this business down? Or do I have the conviction and the belief and the vision, which has always been, 1% better together? That's like our thing, trademarked it. And it's like, do I still believe in the ability to bring and create technology to people that can help them build healthy habits, that can help them find community, that can help them get incrementally better and reach their goals and improve habits? Or, should I just write this thing off? And a few things happen, and obviously, I had to let go of the majority of our team, which was extremely tough, and just go into like default alive mode, just be super lean. And then I met our current CTO, who built and sold a pretty well-known company, and he was very passionate about this new vision and mission. And so, we rethought the entire product and the entire experience. We're now building a very specific technology stack that's vertically integrated that'll help people achieve habits and goals with other people. And it's truly community driven, and it's a system that's really going to bring forth the rising tide, kind of lifts all boats. And so much science points to habits and goal setting and achieving being directly correlated to community and directly correlated to accountability and people around you helping you do the thing. And everything that we've seen on the market within this space, even the ones that have community features, are not community first. And so we're building this right now. We've been retooling it for the past 4 to 5 months. We've kind of like completely burned the boats, build in stealth mode, rebuilt the tech stack from the ground up. We're building the wait list right now, but pretty soon here we're gonna come out more publicly, and people will be able to use it and try it. And I'm really proud of the pivot, because we not only could have given up, but we easily could have continued with what we were building before, and had it been something much less valuable. And I think now we're building something that will be able to move with the AI curve. We're building something that is going to, I think, really bring value to people. But more importantly, it's an experience that we really don't think exists in the market right now, specifically in the wellness space. So that's that journey. And then I started a company in the creator economy in 2020. And that's a whole separate journey. I went and found a CEO for that, and that company's doing decently well right now. And it's kind of, that's like another one of my children, but like at this point, I'm not really raising that child, right? I found a good family for it. But yeah, that's the journey, man. And it's been tough. It's been very, very tough. But if you are driven by the right mission, and if you're lucky enough to find the right people and bring the right people around, and if you find people that are smarter than you that believe in what you're building together, and you just figure out a way to stay alive, then you'll stay alive until you get lucky, and then you'll figure it out.
Wow. If you did not just define entrepreneurship in a nutshell, I don't know what we just listened to, but man, you went through failure and pivots and an entire COVID season to now seeing a great vision that you're walking towards. And I want to kind of highlight that. And I think Alex Hormozy kind of said it best. It's not how much money you make, it's about how long you could stay in it, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I think you're doing all the right steps here, from clothing to supplement to content to tech to a buyout going wrong without a breakup clause, and like learning from all of this. Like, this is exactly what Vin and I go through on a daily basis. This is what people need to hear about is, it's success doesn't look like this. It looks like this, man.
Dude, that's one of my controversial takes, man. I mean, I think entrepreneurship is not this rosy thing.
No.
And
sleepless nights.
Yeah, it's very simple to me. Like I like to say that a success or a successful entrepreneur is just a failure that just tried one more time. And like, that's me. Like, it's like, if you don't quit, you'll win eventually. Like, that's what Alex says, right? Like, and it's really, really true. And if you actually do the research on some of the most famous companies that we all know, like, that's what happened. Like Figma, for example. People don't know that it took Figma like 6 or 7 years to hit $1 million ARR. Like,
that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, look it up. And Figma's biggest investor, like, was just like, yeah, I believe in the CEO. I know he's going to figure it out eventually. Like, I had the pleasure of talking to Seiju Jung, who was the original founder and CEO of Noom, because we share the same executive coach. And he was telling me that, I mean, dude, they started Noom, I think, around like 2008, and they really didn't see any traction until 2015. And he just was like, he said something really profound, which is how and the reason I still try to live my life like an athlete. But he was like, the only reason why I was able to continue to persevere with Noom, failure after failure and mistake after mistake and mistake, is because he was like, it was just a whole bunch of heavy metal rock music. And he was like, I treated myself like an athlete. I worked out. I ate well. Obviously, there was nights when I didn't get sleep, but like, I was like, I know in order to get Noom to where it needs to go, and I'm paraphrasing, but like, I know in order to get Noom to where it needs to go, I need to treat myself like a professional athlete, because every single day, in order for me to give my best, like, this is what needs to happen. And so, Noom probably shouldn't be what it is. He just didn't give up. Another one that people don't know is the story of Shazam. So Shazam was acquired by Apple, I think, around like 2013 or 2014, something like that. Check me on that. Maybe a bit later, but it took them like 14 or 15 years or something like that before they got acquired by Apple. Like, Shazam was like way too early. Like, they should have given up. Like, they absolutely should have given up. Like, Shazam was like, I don't know how, like, Shazam was like way before its time, right? So it's like, it's these stories, man. And it's like, people need to realize and they need to understand that if you're building something, you need to understand that it is going to take you at least 5 years. On average, if you're lucky, 10. And 90% of that is going to be this juxtaposition of euphoria and terror. Like every week, like, and that's all I've experienced over the last like 8 to 10 years has been like I can tell you the moments of euphoria when we get the big deals done, when we see the first revenue come in, when we have record revenue months, when I find good team members, when stuff is humming, when I get someone texting me about how much they love a product or they love a thing. I can tell you about the terror, like running out of money 4 or 5, 6 times, credit cards, losing good people, this deal falling through with this huge company, getting sued. I've been through it all, dude. Well, not all, because I know people have been through worse, but like the plight of an entrepreneur to me is like the ones that outlast and the ones that do incredible things tend to be the ones that are like a cockroach. You just can't you can't kill them, like no matter what.
I feel like that kind of shifts my question here a little bit, because I wanted to bring it back to your community first wellness program, and I think I want to get to that. But why? That's my question. Why go through all this mental fortitude and pain and struggle and the complete extremity of these great moments and these down moments? I feel like it's really important for our people to hear why. Why do you go through that?
It's a few things. It's got to be who you are. Like, they say that if you're trying to figure out what you should be doing or where you should be or what you should be focused on in your life, they usually say try to revisit what you were seeing or thinking or wanted to do when you were a child. When I was a child, I wanted to build businesses. Like when I have another thing that I wrote at 5 years old, and like the first 3 to 5 lines, I literally say, build up things you can think about. I'm saying this at 5. Like, create, like, write things and write it nice. Like, think big dreams. Like, I'm saying this at like 5. So like, this is who I am. Not only that, I'm like that person that I go on like my daily walks. I'm walking down the street. I get ideas and my brain it solves problems. Like I have a notepad in my phone of just thoughts from the ether, ideas, problems, frameworks, future think. Like it's just who I am. And not only that, it's my DNA. My dad's an entrepreneur. My mom was an entrepreneur. My dad was adopted. He first met his father in like his mid 40s, had no idea who his real father was. Guess what? His real father, my grandfather, serial entrepreneur. Like, so it's that piece. So if you're able to get to a point of self-awareness where you know that you're willing to just build things, you understand that you're able to have the ability to take massive risk. And by the way, this is another controversial thing. I'm the first person to say that having a job and having having a job is amazing. Every time I see a piece of content that's like, you can't get rich being an employee, I'm like, you guys are idiots. Steve Ballmer started as Bill Gates' assistant. Are you kidding me? Tim Cook isn't an entrepreneur.
Mm.
Tim Cook is an operator. Are you kidding me? You can do so much if you build a set of skills and figure out businesses or a business that need the skills, and you provide value based on that skill set, and you know how to negotiate, you figure out a way to become irreplaceable, you get 98% of the positivity without the risk. And then most businesses are giving you options. So part of it is it's got to be who you are. Like, if I have an idea that's very clear to me, and I get a whole bunch of ideas, but some are okay, some are good, some are really good. If you're one of those people where you get something, you're thinking about it every single day. It's hard for you to go to sleep at night. You're talking to other people about it. You're sketching things. You're building plans. And you don't have to force yourself to do it. You just do it. You're probably an entrepreneur. And what that also probably means is that you have the resilience, and you also have the ability to go from failure to failure to failure to failure to failure with optimism. That's the other thing, right? Like, if you don't have that, you shouldn't do it. Now, to the other why, on the business side, the reason why I'm so passionate about helping people become 1% better together in the whole wellness angle is because I have lost family members who are near and dear to me that I love because of bad lifestyle choices. My mom is still here and operates like she's 20 to 30 years younger than she is because of good life choices and good habits. I am who I am, and I'm able to play basketball 3 to 4 times a week and still strength train and be in good shape because of my habits. I was able to build a community and discover myself and get out of a depressive, overweight, whatever stage, because I found physical activity, which helped my mental health. And we have access to all this information. We live in a world where we can get our hands on anything, yet the world has never been more depressed. The world has never been more obese.
Mm-hmm.
The world has never been more lonely. So part of my why is I feel like I am here to exist, not only to bring things to the world that have value, but to inspire people and help people live better lives, believe in themselves, take that risk, et cetera, et cetera. And if I can do that through a product or service, and if I can do that through a platform that I'm able to build, I will be content. Like, me being of service in that way helps me. Like, I'll be content, because that's one of my biggest problems. I'm never satisfied. I've tried to work, and Vin knows this. We talked about this because Vin helps people with stuff like this. It is never enough. Like, but when will it be enough for me? When I'm able to look at people that I've impacted positively through products and services or through my platform, along with being a good friend, being a good father, being a good brother, being a good son, I will be content. That's the only way. So when you combine those things, like your why for being of service, and then having the intangibles that allow you to, like, just not give up, then you probably should be an entrepreneur. If you don't have those things, and again, it pisses me off, like, you can do so much and have such an incredible life with a 9-to-5 job. like, let's not get it twisted. So that's a long-winded way of answering that question, but that's my answer.
Well, that's one hell of a why, man. You know, and it's funny because you did mention, and it's interesting, right? I don't believe that we're ever really supposed to have like a enough. Like it never really is enough. I think that if you live your life happy yet dissatisfied, you're going to live a good life. Because you should be dissatisfied because you know there's always a capability to do more, to go further. Yet that also doesn't have to be something that dissuades you, right? That also doesn't have to be something that bothers you. In fact, there's a lot of fulfillment in not being at an end goal. We find all of our fulfillment in the journey, you know? Everybody who's ever experienced any success knows that success feels good for 5 minutes, and then after that, it doesn't feel like shit because it's gone.
Yep.
So I like it. I mean, overall, what I would say even for you is like, you don't have to feel good about how many products your business impacts, or sorry, how many people your products or business impacts. You just got to feel good now, and then continue to use that as the motivator to keep doing more. And at least that's how I look at my life. Because I mean, I'm trying to impact 1 billion lives, so it's going to take
Right.
me a little bit to get there, just a little bit, but you know, eventually we'll get there, and it's going to be a nice, fun journey. So I'm curious, man. You got this why, you got this mission. You had a background, right? And actually, Shane might be able to relate with you on this. You had a background doing marketing, if I'm correct, right? Having a marketing agency. So how has that really helped you with the way that you look at or position your brand? Like, how has that influenced the way that you show up? Like, what can people even take from some of your lessons that you might have learned in, you know, the marketing field?
Oh, dude, great question. This is the way that I describe what I learned from my degree that I got at Columbia, and with my undergrad too. I had I majored in business, but I minored in marketing. And the reason why I was always drawn to marketing is because growing up, I used to watch commercials with my mom, and my mom, um, she was like a multi hyphenate. She started as a model, and then she had a really successful radio show and TV show. She like interviewed Maya Angelou and like all these other things.
Nice.
And I always used to watch commercials with my mom, and we used to break them down. And growing up, I would never forget the commercials that gave me goosebumps. And the commercials that gave me goosebumps, not only did I never forget that, but I never forgot the products that they were associated with. And the best way to describe it for me is at the time when Jobs was alive, when Apple's marketing and storytelling was at its peak, Dell and Apple created the same thing. But what I learned that can take a terrible product and at least put a whole bunch of eyes on it is that, and I learned this from my professor at Columbia. Her name was Elizabeth Tallerman. She's like one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. Like, the way that you achieve the holy grail is if you have a product or a service or a thing, but it doesn't start there. It starts with who you're trying to reach. And if you understand and take the time to truly download what the intrinsic why, the intrinsic like driver of the person you're trying to reach is, and if you connect that and make that the same as the intrinsic driver in the story of the product, you will win. Like, but it's hard to do. And so many people, when they build things, they focus on the bells and whistles and the all the stuff of the thing, when they need to be focusing on communicating the thing in the right way to the people that are going to be buying and engaging the thing. Like, it's like that whole, Gaga thing, that funny ass clip. It's like, she doesn't know the first thing about cameras, but she knows how to communicate the product, right? So I learned that in building something, and Hermosi talks about this too. Like, you could have the greatest product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't matter. Now, what I also learned, and what I think it's also important for people to understand about product and entrepreneurship, is that you should be focused on product-led growth. Like, focus on building a product that has growth mechanisms within it. Like, focus on building a product or service that has the mechanisms that makes it easy for Vin to share it with Shane, and Shane to share it with John, and John to share it with Mary, et cetera, because these people are the same user persona, and it's solving the same problem. Like, if you look at a lot of the best technology products, services, et cetera, Reddit didn't have any marketing. Early days of Facebook didn't have any marketing. Instagram didn't have any marketing. This is all product-led growth. So that's how I look at it, right? Like, the most brilliant thing about Apple, and the reason why Apple is because when you looked at Apple's campaigns and you looked at Dell's campaigns were about the computer, and they were about the specs of the computer. Apple's campaigns were about the fact that you use an Apple computer when you come back home and you can be yourself. Like, when you're in the office and you're doing something that you hate, you don't use Apple computers.
Mm-hmm.
When you come back home and you're being creative and you're in touch with yourself, you're using a Mac. That's the difference. And people to this day don't understand that. And if you can grasp that, it can be an insane on-ramp for what you do, especially if you have a great product. There are so many companies and products that are terrible products, but that have figured this out, and they're good businesses.
Yeah.
The product retention is still not that good, but because they figured this out, they're good businesses. So that's been the biggest takeaway for me. And with whatever I do, especially with something that's direct to consumer, it's about cracking that. And everything is a story. Like, you would be surprised if you were trying to talk to someone and get someone's attention, whatever it is. If you tell someone, let me tell you a story, very, very, very few times will people not perk up and be like this. Like, everybody loves a story. Everybody loves to be a part of a story. Everybody loves to feel like they're a part of something. And so when I realized the power of studying storytelling, studying psychology, understanding the difference between branding, advertising, marketing, the difference between tactics, who you are, how you get in touch with people. Once you master that, you can make anything grow. And then if you actually have a good product, and then you master that, it's really only a matter of time. So in a nutshell, that's like why marketing, branding, storytelling to me is so important, especially in the AI age, because product engineering is almost fully commoditized. So then what is the moat? The moat is distribution. The moat is brand. The moat is network effects and lock-in via community. And the moat is user experience. Those are like the only four moats that are going to be left.
I could tell that you definitely have a marketing background, and I'm very curious on what commercials actually you remember that did move you. But prior to that, I thought your analogies were actually spot on. People, I think the rule of thumb was 10% of people buy for the actual product or service because they actually believe in it. 90% buy the result, right?
Yep.
I'm buying this, let's say for a service. I'm buying this because it's going to give me more time back. I'm buying this because it's going to give me an ROI. And that's essentially what you're doing with your storytelling is you need to sell the result. I'm buying this Mac computer.
Mm-hmm.
Why is the Mac computer better? I don't know, but it is better, right? It syncs up with my Apple perfectly. It's got this and this. Well, Dell has that, yeah, but the Mac just makes me feel better. That's what people say. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know, but they just like this device because they think it's better because they bought
Mm-hmm.
a result.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you really said it beautifully. I don't think it's been laid out like that with those analogies. Well, so my simple question right now is, what were those commercials that you remember as a kid that gave you goosebumps? And then we'll bring it back to the community and wellness.
Oh,
Oh,
dude.
you on the spot because you told me you remembered it. So,
Bro, the maybe it's my fault with Michael Jordan and Jordan Brand. I can recite the whole commercial.
with the
Maybe it's my
sneakers,
fault. Yeah, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I made it look easy when it wasn't.
mm,
Like it's etched in my mind.
mm,
Like
I get
because
goosebumps.
I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, like this is what it means to be great.
Mm,
And then at the end I see a Jordan Brand symbol and I'm like, oh my God, like I need like that's it.
yeah,
Right?
got to get these shoes.
Yeah.
That's how
Like,
you up, especially in the '90s when it
yeah.
started. Mm,
Yeah. That is
perfect.
and it's funny because I pay attention to this stuff so closely. It's almost like I always know when these companies are either working with different ad agencies or because it changes, right? Like in that time period, Jordan's marketing, advertising, storytelling, Nike as well was incredible. I think Nike uses Whedon and Kennedy, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they still do it. I know all of Apple's storytelling was in house, but only recently has Jordan Brand started to do these types of things again. Like
Mm.
Jordan Brand's storytelling, advertising is starting to get back to that, which I think is cool. Um, Apple's like all of the think different stuff, like from Apple. I didn't see the commercial when it first dropped, but like doing my research on YouTube and just looking it up the first time I saw the commercial, like goosebumps. I'm like, okay, now I like really understand, right?
Do you think
Um,
Apple's gotten so good at the point? Because lately, the only thing they talk about for improvements wise is their camera. Go back for the last 5 years for the new Apple iPhones. They always talk about the best, latest, and greatest camera because that's all they have. So do you think at a certain point, like Coca-Cola, they've just gotten so big? And like the last one that I saw had Kevin Hart, right? Talk about the new iPhone, and because it was Kevin Hart, because he's world renowned, that's who they're utilizing, right? It's just like Jordan. Jordan was an absolute legend, world renowned, right? If the Nike CEO went over there and started showing off the sneaker, no one would really care, right?
yeah.
So do you think it's now that we've turned into this? You're talking about the personal brand, but I just want to transition this into regular
Mhm.
businesses. Do I have to spend the money on these high powered celebrities, these influencers to shoot off my company? Or do you think from somebody like me, Shane Riggs, who nobody knows, right? Who has a couple thousand followers promoting my Heaven and Back book, do you think that is as powerful and talking about the book as I wrote it comparatively to an influencer? I'm curious on that.
Well, I think the bigger you get as a company, the harder it is to innovate.
Mm,
Um, because when you're smaller, you can move faster, you can break things, you can try things. You're closer to it. I also think for Apple specifically, um, Tim Cook is a hell of an operator. Jobs was an innovator.
hmm
So there's a difference between that. Um, Tim Cook knows how to run like a P&L to like the last drop, and he knows how to like operationalize and optimize and all this. But the innovation and the soul of that, I think, kind of left when Jobs did, which is the reason why I think iPhones, their main product line, has been a bit less innovative, and why, like, they spent billions of dollars on the car and backtrack. Love Apple, but like, that's my thing on that. For what you just said, I think now the biggest thing is to just be transparent about who you are and your story, and doubling down on the transparency and doubling down on the uniqueness of the delivery to you, and getting that message out into the ether. Doesn't matter if it's messy, doesn't matter, like whatever. Like me, for example, like I was so in my head over the last 2 years about just focusing on my companies and building and not doing content. And then I take a step back and I'm like, I'm naturally good at content. I don't have a problem being transparent. Let me just focus on being transparent and doing what I think I should be doing based on what exists in the market. Dude, I've driven like 12 million views in the past like 40 days. Like, just from just being me and like being transparent with delivery. And then if you put out your message and what matters to you and the way that you want to deliver it, and if there is an influencer or a creator that has an audience or that has an intrinsic story that matches your story, and there's a real marriage there, and it's like, it's real and it makes sense and it's able to be delivered authentically, then absolutely, like, that's distribution. And not only is it distribution, the right creators and the creators that are focused on the message want to partner with and work with things where they can help amplify something that they believe in. Now, where it's misaligned is when you get a creator that has a huge audience, but that creator isn't transparent. That creator doesn't have a real connection or stickiness to their audience. It's much less that and much more vanity. That's not going to convert. I'm a big believer in figuring out who you are, not only with your message, but the delivery of that message, the cadence of the message, the consistency of the message, and looking out into the ether and seeing what other people are doing so that you can do something different, like try to zig when everyone else is zagging. And then at some point, you're going to get some signal. Even if that signal doesn't have to be, dude, I was posting a lot of these videos, 200 views, 300 views, 400 views, 200 views, 400 views, and then boom. Like, and even previously, a lot of my audience came from something completely different. Like, some videos went viral for a different reason. But now, like, audience is coming in from people that want to follow me because I'm sharing things that will positively rewire their brain. And so I'm all for doubling down on authenticity and who you are, because that's the only way you can then churn it out at scale. Like, because that's what it takes. If you really come authentically as you, then you'll never run out of ideas. You'll never run out of stuff to do, because it's you. If you're trying to do other things that you see, or if it's not unique to you, then at some point you're going to lose inspiration. You're just going to start copying other people, and then it's not unique. So that's what I would say. I would say double down more on what the insights were and the pain and the journey. And I'm just off assumptions, but like all those things that made you write that book. Like, talk to imagine that you're talking to one person. Imagine that you're like FaceTiming and that you're talking to one person, and this person is the person that you were giving advice to that you wish you would have gotten before you wrote this book, right? And then I firmly believe that type of messaging will then find the people that need that. which is the exact audience that you want for your book. And then when you have that, then it's like, okay, what other people or platforms that are synonymous with why I'm doing this and this message can I partner with, because it just makes sense, right? But only you have the scar tissue that allowed you to be in the frame of mind and let that flow to produce that. So, bring people into that.
Well, you've shared some damn good nuggets, my man. I got a few more questions for you because we're getting close to the end here, and I want to make sure that we can get this final few questions. So usually I like to ask people what their version of a 1% life is, but because you're already having this aspect of 1% better, I'd like to ask you this question instead, which is, inspired by your journey, what 1% better action can our listeners take to start transforming their self-perception or their life today?
You will go in the direction of your strongest thought.
Damn true.
Flat out.
Damn true.
So you cannot control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it. You can control how you deal with it. So just take a second and understand that whenever you get a negative thought, whenever you get a self-deprecating idea, you have the power to reframe that for something positive.
Yeah.
You have the power to do it. It's not, I have to work out. It's, I get to work out. I am privileged to be stressed because I am building something that I love. And it's this constant reframe that will keep you in the state of mind and allow you to attract exactly what you want to happen, because your mind will go in the direction of your strongest thought. And if your strongest thought is, I can't do it, this shit isn't working, I'm never going to figure it out, what do you think is going to happen?
I like it.
Like, people have, it is, I'm going to sound like an Adidas ad, but like it's literally impossible until it's done. Like, people have come back from insane, like, holes, odds. The founder of FedEx was essentially like 70 million in debt with $5K in the bank. And I'm not saying to do this, but he went to Vegas and gambled $5K, got $25K, bought himself a week for fuel costs, raised $13 million, and now FedEx is FedEx. Look it up. Like, everything is impossible until somebody does it.
That's a
and the crazy part is like, if you look out into the world, like, and Jobs said this, but like, if you look out into the world, everything that you see was in somebody's head first. Like, bombers in the sky, these insanely tall buildings in New York City, a self-driving Waymo car.
Very
like,
radical.
Everything is like, in so many things, people are like, oh, hell no, this shit is not going to work. Hell no, you cannot. So in order for these things to happen, these people had to have the strongest thought of, this is going to work. Like, this is not. So that's everything for me.
I love it. And good practical advice, man. I like it. And hopefully the listeners like it as much as we do. So next question that I got for you, my man, is it sounds like you're almost a You're like a book of stories and quotes and phenomenal advice, but what is one of the best pieces of advice that you've ever personally received that's helped you change the way you look at life?
Hmm. Um, man, I actually think it's from my mom, and she always used to. She has this thing. She calls it the 15-minute rule, meaning, um, like life happens, life isn't fair, like stuff is gonna happen to you. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be down. Cry, like do whatever you need to do, but give yourself 15 minutes. And after that 15 minutes, pick yourself back up. Like, and for me, um, sometimes that 15 minutes has been 5 minutes. Sometimes that 15 minutes has been an hour. Sometimes that 15 minutes has been a day. Sometimes that 15 minutes has been a week. But give yourself 15 minutes and pick yourself back up. And it's it just for whatever reason it clicked for me, like as a framework, right? Because it's not necessarily, oh, you get knocked down, get up, get up, get up. It's okay to give yourself 15 minutes, like sit in it. It's okay to sit in it, feel it, like feel the emotions, feel the angst, feel the whatever you're feeling, feel it, sit with it, like acknowledge it,
Mm.
and give yourself 15 minutes and then go. Like, pick yourself up.
I love it, man.
Another good one.
Yeah, it's great. So, last question for you, my man. How can people get involved in your one-in-one life? How can people get more connected with you, get into the community? What can people do to become a part of T. Drew's circle?
Yeah, so for one, obviously when this comes out, I think the easiest thing to do is just, yeah, you can follow me on my social medias. It's T Drew, ITSTDREW on Instagram and TikTok. Um, one, the website is the number one, AND, the number one, life.com. Um, right now, we're building up a wait list for the new product. We're doing private beta, but depending on the velocity of how we build stuff, who knows? When this episode drops, it may be available for you to download. So, whether we're still building the wait list or whether you can check it out, it'll be at that link. And then on Instagram and TikTok, I just create content to help you rewire your brain and see life in a way that is helpful to you. And I kind of have this thing where I'm just I don't necessarily, I wouldn't call it building in public, but I'm sharing what I learned in public about building, about life. And so both of my platforms, I just share things that I say I wish I would have known 10 years ago. So I'm 33 and I like sharing things I wish I would have known at 23. So if you like that stuff, follow it. Thank you in advance for anybody that does, and hopefully what I've shared and some of this stuff is helpful.
I love it. Thanks so much for coming on the show, man. Thanks for dropping so much awesome knowledge. I appreciate you. Hopefully the listeners appreciate all the great stories and insights you shared as well. Be sure to stay tuned, listeners, for another episode of the 1% Podcast, where we will continue to share great stories, great people, and great insights. Don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think, and we'll see you on the next one. As always, I'm your host, Van End.
And I'm Shane.
And that was T. Drew. See you, everybody.